Hey everyone, and welcome to the Doctors of Running podcast, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, talk about the art and the science of the things that we put on our feet. Today, we are going to do a mailbag episode. We have Dr. Sloss and me, Matt Klein. We are going to have some fun talking about some pretty in-depth questions. We actually don't have that many because a lot of these things we're probably going to have a lot to say about. So it won't be hopefully the longest episode because, David, I know you want to see your Warriors here, and we got to make sure we finish by that time. But we're also hoping that it should be pretty information dense, and we can jump into this. So, David, do we want to jump in, or do we want to have the traditional small talk first that we do, or what do you think we should do?
We could do a little bit of small talk. Why not? How's your week going, Matt?
It's pretty rough, actually. Like,
this
is the end of semester. I got a week left trying to build this class from scratch and get all the exams written and the practical ready to go, and feeding off the panic from the students who don't realize that we panic just as much. My saving grace right now is actually going and treating patients, where I'm just I can forget about all of that, or I can go for a run and hopefully not think about it too much, but go treat patients, because I love that, because it allows me to really focus and zone in and forget everything else that's going on. So I get very involved and focused with the people that I get to work with. So it's nice. I like teaching. It's challenging, but I'm just in that phase where I'm man, this semester stuff is rough. For all this, if any students are listening out there, it's just as stressful for faculty as it is for you, at least if the faculty care, which I probably care too much, but that's a different story. How are things for you? Your mileage is going back up, which is really cool to see.
I don't know if I'd say it's going back up, but it's existent. It's good. It's good. So we're recording on Easter today, actually. So,
Happy Easter for all those who celebrate.
Yep. This morning, very thankful, ran with several of my friends, several of which we haven't seen each other actually in a little while because of just training things and, personal things. So, got the whole OG gang back together semi-unintentionally, which was pretty cool. Sweet. And ran in some beautiful bluff trails in Santa Barbara. So, or Goleta technically, but, it was really nice.
Sweet. Hey, also off topic, got to give a shout out to my brother, although this will be a little bit late by the time it comes out. He actually just completed the slug run down in Champouy State Park here in Newburgh, Wilsonville area of Oregon. And the slug run, for those who don't know, and I didn't know what this was until he explained it to me, is one of those 24-hour runs where they actually have one that's longer, where you run 4 miles each hour you go as long as you can until you try to make it 20. So my brother Sean made it through all 24 hours, running a little over 100 miles in that time. And we went down and we're watching and trying to support him a little bit. And that was a pretty cool experience. So he can officially call himself an ultra marathoner. Wow. That was a pretty intense thing to see. So hopefully he is in bed, sleeping and recovering. I don't know how people do the all-nighter stuff. I'm honestly
impressed. Does he run pretty regularly?
He does now. Okay. Yeah. He didn't run when we were in earlier life, but he picked up running, I think, more consistently later and has slowly worked his way into it. Yeah. It was
100 miles in 24 hours is nothing to scoff at. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know how people, by the way, so people are talking
10 hours or 12 or whatever.
I think the biggest thing is I don't understand, and maybe it's because I'm a wimp, but I need sleep. The people that pull the all-nighters running those the 100 or 200 mile races, kudos to all of you. I don't think I could do that. And I've had enough sleep deprivation.
Hallucinate and then you dream while you're awake. That's what it is. You are asleep, but you're not.
Courtney DeWalter talks about having hallucinations. I think there's a puma or a cat or mountain lion that
it's a cougar in a hammock or something.
That she sees, and I'm dude, that's an interesting thing where you're actually comfortable with your hallucinations well enough. I'm that's a totally different world. So all power to Sean and all those that do that. That's really cool. So let's jump in here. And so our mailbag episode, like I said, we got some pretty good questions. The first one is from Diego, and saying, appreciate it. Really, Diego, first of all, really appreciate your comments on the channel, and really happy that the YouTube stuff and all this stuff is helping. He just watched the one about Achilles tendinopathy. He's been struggling with this issue. He said, during this time, I've had to stop 3 times and couldn't successfully resume running. I've had to even have him cancel marathons. I've always done strength training, never had issues. In fact, I enjoy it a lot, and probably even overdo the strength stuff. He goes, when the tendinopathy started, I decided to stop training calves because I was feeling pain during and after workouts. I thought it was making things worse, but after watching your video, it seems like that might have been the wrong approach. I now resumed all calf training every other day doing 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps as recommended, in which, again, for those who don't know, tendons typically respond best to lower, and this is one version of training you can do. It's called heavy, slow resistance training, where some of the evidence that has a little bit better long-term effects, if you do very heavy, less weight, or sorry, less, I always screw that up, high weight, low rep, like when you do 3 to 5 reps or 4 to 6 reps, that you're fatiguing out at that level, that even though it's not that many reps, that actually can help with more of those big tendon stimulus changes. Yeah, so it's a really big stimulus. You don't need that much, which is weird for distance runners to go, I only have to do this and this takes like 5 minutes. What? He says, my biggest question is about returning to running in a light and gradual way. I understand it's important to listen to your body, but I'm unsure of what light really means in this context. How many days a week, how much time or distance, and how should I alternate with lower body strength training? Appreciate this. This is a great question. Both of us, obviously, being PTs, talking about return to sport and running all the time. I've actually just presented on return to running at Combined Sections meeting a couple months ago. But David, I want to lob this question at you first. So what do you think? What does return to running mean to you? And in the context when he says, what does light mean? How is he progressing back? What does that mean for you? And how would you educate Diego or your patients on this?
Yeah, I'm going to assume it's Thiago, but
Thiago, I'm sorry.
But to answer the question, it's a little bit of a loaded one because it's very individualized for every person. And I think you have to look and see what exactly is normal for you, what is quote unquote light for you, and how experienced are you with ramping up and down mileage, training, etc. Sounds like he's very experienced in the weight room. So it might be one of those things where maybe they lift more than they run and now they're running more and now they had an injury. And so it's one of those things where you have to almost like try and scale and look at what is your tissue tolerance? What can your body do without getting injured first off, right? But now that you're actually getting back into it, we don't have any like actual numbers on mileage or what their experience with this is. But let's just say like, I don't know, maybe you lift 3-4 times a week, pretty heavy. And I'm going to assume you don't run on the days you lift. You can, there's nothing wrong with that if you dose it appropriately, but it's just, or we go the other way. Let's say you're lifting 4 days a week and you're running 3 days a week. And you're a little bit more on the lifting side of things. And you can take a look at the volume and say, okay, where did things start to kind of go awry? Like if I'm comfortable running 3 to 4 miles, every other day, and now I'm running, every day or close to every day, like maybe it's 3 times a week and now you're going 4 to 5 times a week at the same distance. Maybe that's a little much for right now, if that's what you're feeling. Or you look at it from the length and the given day. So the day stays constant, but the duration changes. And so I'm kind of going on a little bit of a ramble here, but where you can have it be like, okay, so maybe we go 3 days a week, but we're going 5 to 6 miles versus 4 to 5 times a week at 4 miles. And you can play around with the rest times while you're still loading it and creating adaptations. I think the biggest thing with this is mainly looking at your recovery times and making sure that you can turn around for whatever the next thing that you're trying to do is appropriate and that you can actually do it. That's the biggest thing. I mean, it really, and then you also have to ask yourself too, like, what is the priority? Because if the priority is the lifting and you're running second, then you focus on the lifting and then the running augments that. But if you are trying to make running the emphasis, then you focus on the running and lifting augments that. But they should both complement each other and they shouldn't contrast each other to the point you're getting injured. And only you are going to know that. And that's where it gets kind of tough. And I think having those numbers and kind of maybe keeping a log and talking with a professional that is comfortable with training programs can come in handy, just because it is a lot and it's very hard to manage the ups and downs. I mean, that's probably the thing we hear the most, probably, right? Between running and strength training and how do I balance all of this, especially with all of the other factors in life. And it looks a little bit different for everyone, just based on your own time demands. And then the other thing is too, right? Nutrition, sleep, all that stuff, rest, stress, all those things. But for the most part, I think as long as you scale it back in a way that is quote unquote light to you, and you aren't having any repercussions the following, 48 hours, and you feel good and you're able to kind of scale it up and build, then there's no reason why you can't keep scaling. But you have to pay attention to how you're feeling with each effort here.
I would say, so that was great. I'm going to translate that a little bit. And here's what I typically tell patients is that so first of all, as you mentioned, there's a couple factors, right? So you can only handle so much training, and weight training, running are their own forms of training, but they also can impact each other. You have to decide what is most important. You can definitely overtrain. I've seen this a lot with people like going, yeah, I don't run that much, but I also lift every day and I do Orange Theory every day and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not recovery. Like, you need to make sure you manage your overall load and make sure you're getting enough sleep. You've got adequate nutrition that can balance out the energy needs and recovery stuff. So make sure you're looking at this holistically. This is also not uncommon. Tendinopathies, especially the Achilles, are really challenging. There's a reason people tend to forget about them when they don't hurt anymore. And the problem is we know that runners have tendinopathies and don't have symptoms. They can also have symptoms alleviate and still have the pathology still there. It takes 9 months of consistent work to start making some true, permanent tissue changes on this. So what you're experiencing is totally normal. It's just you got to play the long game. And honestly, you don't even need to load the tendon you should not load it every day with strength training. It should be like a 2, maybe 3 times a week max. So I don't want you to think about your training calves. Think about training tendon with heavy, slow, intentional stuff, which you'll get some calf gains.
Did they say they're doing it daily?
I don't think so. I just want to make sure I clarify that when you load tendons, they take a long time to recover. You also got to make sure that you balance a return to run. So in terms of what light means, what I generally tell my patients is there are 3 primary variables you can think about. There's duration of the run, there's frequency, and there's also intensity. There's obviously overall load for the entire, each week or however, whatever metric and you want to do this, but you should choose only one of those variables to work on at a time. So let's say you have been running. Let's say you got 2 choices. You can either do straight, just go run for a mile or 2 or 3, whatever you can handle. I would keep it in that area. Or you can do a run walk, and you can do it run for a minute and walk for 5 minutes. And then over several weeks, you progress that from, maybe doing that 2 to 3 times a week. And then you do 2 minutes run, 3 minutes walk, 3 minutes run, 2 minutes, so on and so forth. But you got to keep the same time. And once you're running the whole time, once you've got set with that, then you can start going, okay, is this a run distance I like? Now maybe I can do 4 times a week. Now, for a week or so. Now maybe I can do 5 times a week. But you should, don't think of the term light, but progressively low. Kind of like the same way I'm assuming you would program your strength training. You have to think of the same certain way. And like David said, there's no perfect it has to be like this. And the evidence has shown there's no perfect way. It's just progressively increasing the load. But I would encourage you to think long term. Think and this might sound crazy, but think a 4 to 6 month approach to this. So if you've had this much trouble, I would say really think with long term goals in mind of slowly building your mileage back up and choosing one of the variables. So if you're increasing the duration, you should not be suddenly doing a hard 5K in the middle of this. That's too, but that's increasing intensity, right? It's stay consistent, right? Build that up, choose duration, frequency, or intensity, only increase one at a time. So what that looks like for you will be individual, but I'd say give your body some time because it typically takes 3 to 4 weeks of any kind of musculoskeletal stuff to get for your body to adapt to it. It's not like you do workout and you get benefits the next day. It takes much more time than that, not only for your muscles and tissues, but your aerobic system, a lot of the physiology behind it. So give your body some time and work into it. And I'd say work slow and enjoy the process. But that's what we mean by light. And I also suggest with strength training, I would do strength training. If you're going to do it on the same day, strength train after you run, right? If you strength train beforehand, what do you think?
Based on the priority of what you're doing.
That's fair. So prioritize what you want. I would still suggest based on the tendon that loading it that heavy, you're going to want to do that after essentially what you're doing is single leg plyometrics when you run. So I would do the heavier loading afterwards, not before. So if you're going to do that, right, Give yourself set the lifting in the evening, and depending on how you feel, and as David mentioned, you're going to have to reassess the next morning, kind of see, can your body actually handle, for example, running the day after you lift heavy. And so that's where learning to prioritize, is your big focus, right? You want it to be the weight training, or do you want it to be the running? So you have to choose which is going to complement what. And it'd be totally fine to have the weight training be the priority right now, but as you start to build your running up, that might have to switch. You can't do high intensity both. It's just more than most people's systems can handle, and they have conflicting development. So not saying it's impossible, but it's not the best idea, especially as you're developing and trying to really build one or both.
Yeah, I was just going to say, or if you do that, make sure there is ample time for recovery on the flip side of it.
Yeah. Because if you're loading that calf and therefore that Achilles tendon, right, it also needs time to recover. And your calf muscles will recover pretty quick. We talked about 3 to 4 weeks. Tendons take longer. And it's not that you can't run for 3 weeks afterwards. You have to realize it just takes more time. And so maybe taking a slower approach of build stuff up, take your time. The 10% rule is something that kind of gets thrown around. I don't know how much evidence there actually is for increasing mileage or whatever thing by 10% each week, but that might be a decent goal. Find some place to start, test things out, slowly build your way up, because the running will also cause some adaptations to your tendons if you give them time. So hope that helps. All right. Adam is a huge fan and says, been really helpful. He's a certified athletic trainer working with collegiate track and field teams and XC teams, and he runs ultra marathons and marathons. He's wondering if there's any running related CEUs or conferences that you would recommend for sports medicine professionals that work with primarily running based population. He's done the Run DNA and plans to do the Montana's Running Lab one, which literally anything with Rich Willie is phenomenal, but curious if there were any other options that you have in mind. And Adam, we're really helpful. Really happy this is helpful, but we also have some other resources for you. So David, what's 1 or 2 resources you would want to give a shout out for?
Yeah, I think you got to check to make sure that this is compliant with your Con Ed, or it would just be a personal project if it's not. The Tom Goom running repairs course is actually pretty good. It is long, capital LONG, long. So not all places, accredit it. I don't even know if California accredits it or not. We got a discount code a couple of years ago, and I took it, but I actually already had my CEs, so I didn't even report it. It was just
I don't think
something I did, but you'd have to apply for it to work. Right. I think in California, at least for the PT license. Yep. I don't know about the ATC or CSCS. If you try to push that, you probably have a hard time with CSCS, I would think, because I have that. But well, I've been very lucky.
I've been lucky the last several years of doing all the board certifications. Have easily cleared out my CEU.
You don't even need to do anything. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's a good one. It is a genuinely good one. He goes through so many different differential diagnoses and strength considerations, power considerations, and really kind of breaks it down. So shout out Tom Goom on that. It's called Running Repairs. But it's a long one. This is the type of thing where it's almost like you're almost like taking a class, like an actual class. It's not just like a CEU course that you do over a weekend. Yep. But it's a good one. It's a good one. And I think it does break things down in a pretty fundamental way and makes you kind of break up your thinking again in a way where you can kind of put it into different compartments and then make decisions based on said compartments. So I like a lot of it. It's not like that much of it is necessarily revolutionary per se, but it does a great way of kind of breaking things down and giving you things to look for from a slightly different angle. And it might give you a little bit of, some tidbits to kind of work on and see like, oh, maybe I'm not as strong in that area. Maybe I usually look at this, but maybe it is worth looking at this. Things like that. But it's relatively all encompassing and focused on running primarily as its focus, hence Running Repairs. So I think it's a worthwhile course, and yeah, it's good. It's through something called Clinical Edge. It's Australian.
UK?
Is it UK?
I think it's UK.
We have so many
Sorry, Tom,
Australian physios. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's my fault.
That's okay. Tom Goon would be, so Tom Goon would be yours. running repair course. I want to give a shout out to Chris Johnson, who's been somebody I've been following for quite a while. Now we're actually both Northwest people, but he has a new course out called, I think, Clinical Running Essentials. It's a little bit pricey, but it is totally worth every single dollar. It is absolutely great. I'm working my way through it right now as time permits, but Chris Johnson has done a lot of phenomenal things, especially if you're originally interested in bone stress stuff. He translates a lot of things really, really well. Obviously, Rich Willie with the course you're planning to take is also going to do that super well. But anything by Chris Johnson, I would absolutely shout out to be an excellent resource for.
I will say too, real quick, I mean, the way the setup is, it's probably not ideal, but if you do have a MedBridge login, Jay DeSherry does have a couple of courses on MedBridge that kind of break down a couple of things and gives you kind of a nice way of looking at it too. If you haven't done it already, I know that's a pretty common one for most people to have. And if you're probably in the running worlds and you're probably looking at running courses, you probably have already taken those, but they're fundamental and they're not bad. They're pretty good.
Sweet. All right. Holm asks, as a longtime reader of the website and viewer of the YouTube videos all the way from Ireland, thank you very much. Have guided you on some great years of making informed choices. Sweet. Great. Again, the whole point of this is being really helpful. I was wondering if you could help me with something that has been bugging me. I wear custom orthotics, which each have some heel lift, which is very normal, to help with tight calf muscles. Should this impact my shoe choice in relation to drop? I currently get on well with the Ultra and Clifton 9s, but I'm concerned that if I go to say an 8 or 10 millimeter drop, the drop is actually much higher, which yes, it will be, due to the heel lift built in the orthotic. Am I getting this wrong, or should I stay wearing 0 to 5 millimeter drop if it works, as that may in reality be an actual higher drop due to the orthotics? Any thoughts would be appreciated. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if it's already working, don't try to fix something that ain't broken. But yes, if you already have a lift in it, that will increase that drop even more. So I don't know how big the lift is, but let's say it's like 2 to 3, that 10 is going to become 12 to 13. And that is pretty high. You know, and there's a pretty unique population that gets on with 12 millimeter drop shoes. The people that love them. Not everyone does. Right. So if you already do well with kind of a lower drop ratio and then adding the lift with the orthotic, I am all for it. I don't have any issues with that. I wouldn't rock the boat, to be completely honest. If you like the shoes that you're currently running in and you're not having issues, I stay with it.
Yep. I would say exactly the same thing, where, your orthotic use shouldn't necessarily limit the shoes that you're using, but there are some things you need to keep in mind. Like, obviously, the shoes that you choose need to be shoes that can handle orthotics. Like, it needs to have a removable sock liner. It needs to not be a stability shoe, because you should not, unless you have gotten lucky, we never would suggest using an arch, any kind of orthotic with a stability shoe, just because you never know how those things are going to interact, and that's not how the shoe was designed. So obviously, Cliftons are a great option just because they tend to be a little bit deeper in the shoe and it allows the orthotic to fit. I think there's some better options out there, like I can talk about this shoe, right? The Ghost Max 3. I'm just going to do it and then I'll get in trouble. So Brooks has also a couple options, like the Ghost Max is one where they actually lowered the drop. And I believe that was part of the piece, because a lot of orthotics, even over the counter one, can have it have a heel drop of, as David said, some of the lower ones are 2 to 3. They can go up to like 5, 6, 7 millimeter drop additions. So you have a 12 millimeter drop shoe that's now a 17, 18 plus, so
you got a heel on now.
Yeah, now you got a heel on. So that's not a bad thing, which that actually might be fine for some people, but you just have to realize, if you've been having success in that 0 to 5 millimeter drop range, that is probably a pretty good area to stay. If you're curious, it shouldn't keep you away from another neutral shoe that can handle that. You just have to be aware that you're definitely going to make some changes in mechanics. You're going a higher drop. You might feel some stuff in your knee or hip, because that's going to require a lot more shock absorption from that area and a lot more motion. So just know, don't freak out, but just go, if something's working, stay with it. But if you're curious, know that you just might have to take some time to adapt to it and see if your body can adapt. So don't panic. Just make sure you're still good at making good decisions with shoes that will take an orthotic, and then understand the changes that you will be inducing and experiencing if you do go that route. So don't freak out. Just know it's going to be different. All right. DT asks a stability question. Says, I have a question about the Wave Inspire shoes. I have the Inspire 18. They were the best shoes I ever had. Then I switched off to the Inspire 19 and they were the worst shoes I would ever had. That happens all the time. As soon as I started to walk in them, I feel pain, knee joint pain after long walks, pain in their hips. Mizuno changed something about that shoe. I would like to buy something similar to the Wave Inspire 18. What do you all think? David, what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. What Inspire are they on now? I feel like
we haven't tested any of the recent Inspire. It's like the Horizon 8 and I forget which Inspire we're on now. We haven't tested yet.
It's at least
20 something.
It's just because this is a little bit ago now, and now the shoes have changed. Are we on 21? Yeah, men's Wave Inspire
that's right.
21.
Yep, they talked about 22.
I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, so I mean, like, this is obviously 3 models ago now.
Yep.
It's tough because, especially in the stability world, like, things have changed so much, and with this larger push for these softer foams and these higher stack heights and these geometric changes that the market is kind of asking for, and a lot of the companies are accommodating, shoes are changing.
Yep.
I don't remember the specific changes between the 18 and the 19. I remember one of them went to the Wave Knit, but I don't remember exactly which one that was. But if you're a fan of the previous training models that were a little bit firmer, that had a little bit more stability integrated into them, and they were higher drop, I would probably look into having maybe a higher drop flagship like stability model that is currently out. You know, it's hard to match this entirely because I don't remember exactly which one the 18 is, but I have an idea because they had that dual fan, like thick, like plastic thing on the medial side. But I'm thinking things like kind of like a Brooks, like Adrenaline GTS, or even a Topo. Like, is it the Magnify? No, it's not the Magnify. Is it the Ultrafly that has the post medially there that has that thick, like it's hard to get a shoe that's exactly like that now, but that's probably one of the closer ones I could think of is actually the Ultrafly. What you got?
I looked at our reviews and I remember what happened because the Inspire 18 had super aggressive medial stability. Like it jumped up a lot. And it was kind of very true to what the Inspire had been. The switch to 19 is they went like almost to like borderline stable neutral. I remember this because it wasn't too much for me because I tend to be more of a mild stability person. But it might make sense because they made it more balanced. Right. So instead of just being really biased with a really strong, it's not a post, but that the wave plate was massive on the medial side with its fanning, and the 18 and 19, it wasn't. I remember there was a comment we made where it was like, I'm not really sure the difference between the Inspire and the Rider, because the Rider's always been really stable as well. And so it was like, these are starting to look kind of similar. So that makes sense. So I think right now, DT, I actually have an answer for you because there is a shoe that did the exact opposite, and that would be the Brooks Glycerin GTS 22. So the Glycerin 21 GTS was actually very soft, and I liked it because it was so soft, and the stability actually became kind of mild, which was not what that shoe was meant for, but I liked it. Version 22 brings that shoe back to form where it's really aggressive. I think Box Alt said this, and I got to quote him, that it's like almost like kind of moving toward like inching on the Brooks Beast territory. Like it's pretty structured. It definitely moves back to where the Glycerin GTS, why am I forgetting the name? I tried to reference this during the comparison review I was doing on YouTube, and I couldn't remember what it used to be called. But the Glycerin GTS had a different name, and I feel really bad because I can't remember what that was. Somebody comment below, remind me what that was.
Entirely, where it wasn't Glycerin at all?
It wasn't Glycerin GTS. It was, man, I'm feeling dumb. And I don't want to look this up right now. But yeah, there was a precursor to that was around for a while, and then they switched it to keep things simple. So the Glycerin GTS 22 specifically, I think would be a good alternative. Drops a little bit higher. It's not necessarily 12, but it's still on the higher end. Like, it's still 10, like 10-ish. Right? Yeah. It's like 39, 29. Yeah.
So it's the Glycerin 22 is, and the platform's supposed to be theoretically.
Yeah. So, and that rear foot, midfoot medial post and guide rail is really aggressive. So, and it took a while for me to break that in. It was kind of bugging me at first, and then it broke in. I'm like, okay, I got used to it. So yeah,
I like that pick.
That would probably be my biggest suggestion, because they don't make a lot of shoes like how the Inspire 18 was designed. Like even the Keanu series, I'm going to do a comparison review. Like it's not as the medial stability is not as aggressive. It's more guidance based, which works for some people, and then others it's not. So Glycerin GTS 22.
Yeah, walking around in it, that makes sense. I haven't actually run in it yet. I just got these as of 2 days ago.
Right.
So I've run in the Glycerin 22, but not the Glycerin GTS 22 yet.
Yeah. All right. John asks, hey, Dr. Running, I am a 61-year-old that's been running for over 45 years. I've been relatively injury-free until the last couple of years that I've developed or have had Achilles tendonitis off and on again. John, just FYI, if you're listening, I guarantee that's Achilles tendinopathy, that not tendonitis, but that, no offense. It's a chronic thing that's been going on. You can treat it though. I've been running with shoes with at least an 8mm drop, no plates for most runs, but find that my legs are so much fresher if I use shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed. Are there any shoes you recommend as daily trainers with plates for someone in my situation? I've been hesitant to run in shoes with plates on a regular basis, but perhaps it makes sense. So as I seem to have better recovery. Currently training for grandmas, but only can run 3 to 4 days a week. Thanks for your advice. David, what are your thoughts on running more frequently in shoes with plates?
Yeah, that's a hard one because there's not much out there as far as the long-term effects on it, right? Yep. Like, I mean, I think there's still benefit to doing both plated and non-plated training. If you are responding well to something that has, let's say, the Endorphin Speed, that's a flexible plate, by the way. So that's not a really stiff carbon plate.
No.
If you benefit from having a little bit more bend in the shoe, then a shoe like the Endorphin Speed or the Mizuno Neo Vista or why am I blanking? I'm trying to think of the plastic fiber. The Puma has one too. The Deviate.
Deviate Nitro. Yeah.
Yeah. That's technically carbon. It is right?
Carbon. Yeah.
But it's more flexible.
Yeah. Just kind of.
Okay. Maybe not that one.
But
I didn't get that one.
It's a good option too, I think. And Nathan loved that one. But
but they're out there. You can look for the plastic plated shoes that have a little bit more give to it, that are a little bit more training friendly and still give you some rigidity and a rocker and kind of take some pressure off of that. I just think it's better though to space it out a little bit and kind of go back and forth and have a rotation. Like we talk about, that's one of the few things that we do have some evidence on, it can decrease injury. And then also try to mimic, especially if you're getting something plated, to mimic what you're going to be racing in, if you're going to be racing. So that way there's some carryover and some translation. And most of the shoes that are kind of more flexible, that have some stiffness, like a stiffening agent that's plastic, usually are a training companion to something that's a little bit faster, being the racing model.
Yeah. I would totally agree. And I would say
Zoom Fly isn't horrible. That's a little bit stiffer though. But it's still
that's definitely stiff.
But it's still more of a training option versus a racing option that's still plated. But
I would say with how common it is that plates are in everything. And I have less concern now with a shoe's plated or it has a super foam in it. It's when we talk about training in super racing shoes all the time, then I'm I don't know. There's some people that's the only shoe they can run in. And that I understand. Shoes, regardless of whatever comment, shoes are tools. So I'd say if you found a type of shoe that helps you run and feel better, great. Awesome. Be aware that if it's Achilles tendon issue, like I mentioned, that a shoe won't fix the underlying problem. It might make you feel better, but you still need to appropriately load that tendon, a couple times a week with some heavier loading appropriately. And I did a whole episode on that I would encourage you to watch, that hopefully will provide some guidance on. But yeah, I would not worry about it, just because there's so many shoes out there. So finding what works for you and using a shoe that's going to be similar to what you're going to race on is going to be helpful. The only thing where this becomes, because a plate it adds stiffness, right? We've seen plenty of research where a plate by itself, that's not the magic thing. The magic is the combination in these shoes of max stack height, super foam, design of the plate to and it has to be curved in the right way in the forefoot to optimize efficiency. It's the combination of factors, right? So one thing, it's super common. And the Endorphin Speed it's a popular shoe. It wins it's always a top shoe in our list every single year just because it's great. And a lot of people train full time in it. The only challenge you have to realize is that you will adapt to that and you will get used to it. So if you suddenly want to switch to a shoe that's more flexible, you need to take some time. So, and I think Nathan said this really well, where I always sound kind of extremist, but there's no shoe that's necessarily going to cause you an injury. It's just if you make big changes in shoes or really big changes in training too quickly for your body to adapt. So just know, if you're used to training in a plated shoe, be it flexible or not, if you go to something that's way more flexible, you just need to give your toes some time to get used to having to go through maybe a little bit more range of motion. So yeah, it's totally fine. Remember to appropriately treat that tendon, because you're going to need it, and you need to load it for at least 9 months, and the pain will go away long before that. But yeah, it's totally fine, especially with the number of shoes that have that. So I wouldn't worry. It's a great shoe. All right, last one. This is actually, we'll see if this may not be a short answer. Let's see if we can keep this brief, but probably not. Luke says, hi, Dior. Hope you're all well. I'm a longtime follower, podcast listener. I really appreciate it so much for your insight, injury prevention, etc. I have a question on my post-run routine, which usually consists of about 15 to 20 minutes of static stretching. I'm wondering what you would suggest as a post-run routine in order to avoid prevent injury. What dynamic stretching and really would dynamic stretching or mobility work be more effective? Strength training, any insight you have would be greatly appreciated. I've also been curious about your thoughts on the efficacy of foam rolling, massage guns, etc. And so we have talked about this, and so we've, as a group, done some episodes on foam rolling, massage guns. And to be honest with you, they're totally fine tools. If they make you feel better, great. They're gonna the impacts of them are gonna last about 20-ish minutes, right? Yeah, it's a transient effect. If it makes you feel good, awesome. We are not entirely sure where a lot of the effects are. I know a lot of people like to say they're breaking up adhesions. That's not true. There's some evidence that you actually might be impacting your brain more than anything else, but they have not been associated with injury prevention, and neither has static stretching. That doesn't mean that static stretching or these things don't have their place. Like if you truly have a mobility, like a muscle, like soft tissue mobility restrictions, some static stretching might be helpful. You need to obviously move. So if you just static stretch, the effects are more helpful if you do the static stretch and then try to move into the new range and use it right afterwards. But in terms of actually like things that we know that reduce injury, the things that are actually that is strength training and a shoe rotation. We don't have a lot of evidence. Like if you want evidence specific stuff, we don't have a lot of stuff, with the exception of strength work. And I think, David is going to have some great thoughts on this as well, but like 15 to 20 minutes is a lot. Like, David, do you have 15, 20 minutes post run? Like, cause mine's usually done like before work. And so I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get, Yeah.
Yeah. I'm usually barging in, ripping open if I have milk on hand, making some chocolate milk. If I don't have milk on hand, ripping open a protein drink of some kind. Honestly, it's a lot of this is very individual. Mm-hmm. I will say with the time you have, it's just focusing on the impairments that you see in yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you have flexibility issues, you work on flexibility issues. If you have joint restrictions, like if your ankle can't bend very well and you're getting a pinching in the front of your ankle when you run, maybe you work on that a little bit. If it's a strength issue, I'm assuming you didn't just get off of a massive track workout or something.
Right.
You're just coming back from a run. You can hit some heavy lifting real quick. 15 to 20 minutes that's enough time to still get, a decent load and stimulus. Like Matt was alluding to earlier. I mean, we're talking like 3 to 5 reps in a set. Like it's not like there's maybe that many.
3 sets, that doesn't take that long.
A couple minutes in between. Yeah. So you can hit some strength if you don't have very good strength, or if you know that you've had a history of tendinopathies and things like that, and you're just trying to kind of work on building some of those up, whether it's calf raises, gluteal, different things like that, quad. That, or if this is kind of more of a personal one, but like if you only have 15 to 20 minutes and you're racing off to something stressful, if that 15 to 20 minutes is de-stressing, that is also time that you can take to have that 15 to 20 minutes to just have that time as well. I think runners have a very big tendency of also being very neurotic about like, I need to do every little thing I can do to make myself the best runner possible. But if you're so obsessed about doing every little thing that you can do, that also takes away from some of your ability to do the things that are productive for you as well. because you're so hyped up about doing those things all of the time. So I think it's just such a loaded question, but at the same time, just ask yourself the question of like, what are the things that you're lacking? What are the things that you want to work on? And just focus on those things. I think that's the biggest advice I can possibly give on that. As far as the foam rolling and massage guns, I think Matt hit it really well. It's very temporary. There are some stuff out there that show that it can have some effect, on flexibility or range of motion in the short term, but it doesn't in and of itself impact things long term without having some kind of intervention placed on top of it. That's probably not going to happen in 15 to 20 minutes. But if it feels good and it gets your day started right and everything, and you're in a good peace of mind, like, hey, I'm all for it. I'm not going to lie. Like if I'm on a lunch break, sometimes at the very end, the last 10 to 15 minutes, you can ask all of the aides that work with me. If anyone's listening to this, I'll roll out a foam roller and then I'll just lay on it and do a pec stretch. I'll just sit there for a couple minutes, like, cause my posture isn't always the greatest because I'm always working on people. I'm always in like gremlin mode, and then I'm like charting and I'm doing my thing. And it's like, okay, like this is my time to just relax, de-stress, work on some pec length.
But that's a targeted intervention though. You're like, I know I've been forward.
Exactly,
I feel tension. I have limited range of motion into like horizontal abduction or like pec motion. So to stop, because you become your daily activities or the things you do most tend to influence how your body is, right? There's no perfect posture, but you're like, I know that I want to maintain this range of motion. So at the end of the day, I'm going to work on it. And so static stretching is totally fine, right? Like the best time to do it is after a run when you're already warm, right? Just make sure if you have a muscle strain that just happened, I wouldn't be stretching it. If you just did a really intense workout, I wouldn't be doing it because if you realize that static stretching also does cause muscle damage because you're pulling things apart. So just be careful with how you combine that. But I think you're totally right where do the things that you need to work on. If you know you have, like you said, an ankle mobility problem, you should be working on ankle mobility after that. It doesn't need to take 20 minutes.
Or hip extension.
Yeah, or hip extension. Yeah. You need to work on hip extension. Great. You need to work on your hamstring mobility. Great. Like you should create a tailored program for yourself that is efficient and deals with the things that you need. If your calf is the thing that's stiff, then yeah, maybe you do some calf stretching. If you like how a foam roller massage gun feels, awesome. You could do the combined because the combined of that and static stretching with movement tends to make better long-term effects. Just, I would say, make sure you're enjoying it, make sure you're efficient with your time and do the things that you know you need. And that would be it. And if you find that you do best with 15, 20 minutes static stretching, great, do it, right? The evidence, right, is only goes so far. A lot of the rest of it is being able to understand and clinically reason through this. And so the evidence doesn't go very far. Like one of the few things we got is either individualize something to make it unique to you. Strength training is the other thing besides the shoe rotation. That's it, what we got for running injury reduction. So hope that helps, but make it specific to you. As always, that's kind of our theme is we always appreciate everybody listening because we want to help you understand what's going to work for you. Our goal is never to give cookie cutter approaches just because that's not how the human body works. And shoes and running are no different. If you want to hear any more of these kind of topics, please follow us on all different social media channels. You can find obviously this on Spotify if you're a listener, or if you want to watch this in that medium, you can find it on YouTube in various areas. We're on lots of different social sites, be it Instagram, LinkedIn, we're on X. Are we on X?
We should be.
Yeah, we're on all the things. Bach is amazing and posts on all the things. And you always, obviously, where this mailbag comes from is usually from email questions that we do our best to answer, but know that we are often quite overwhelmed and find it better to communicate these to the world through this.
I'm going to take it upon myself to inject some sports. Who's winning the NBA playoffs, Matt?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I'll let you know after this week.
You can just take a wild guess. Just spit out a team.
We're not going to, for the OG listeners, we know how this goes. So I'm not going to, no, I'll let you do this before we sign off. Who do you think's going to win?
Well, I got to go with my Warriors, man. Come on.
That makes sense.
No matter what, even if our back's against the wall, I got to go with the Warriors.
The game has started. So
it has started.
Yes.
Well, maybe. I don't, it's sometimes they say 6:30 Pacific time.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't actually get started till like 6:40-ish. So, but either way, it's starting in the next couple. Yeah.
All right.
If it hasn't.
So we're going to sign off here. As always, we really appreciate everybody's feedback, everybody's comments, and all of you listening, learning, and hope this is helpful because we really do care about helping you run healthy and well and hope you're able to continue doing so.